financial state of the city. We'll ask Curtis Woods if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so we just want to acknowledge some of our dignitaries that we have in the audience. Firstly, the Honorable Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, who is not here right now, but we have Deputy Chief Kendra David that's here on her behalf. Of course, our City Comptroller, the Honorable Dr. Darren Morton. The Honorable J. Gary Pretlow. I believe we have Tyree Woodson Samuels. City Council President, Caitlin Gleason. And I'll just ask all our commissioners and directors to stand as we acknowledge you all the city leadership. And without further ado, we introduce the Honorable Dr. Darren Morton to lead us in the 2024 financial state of the city.
So, good evening, Mount Vernon. Thank you all for being here today as we prepare to receive the 2024 financial state of the city, to provide you with the updates on what we have been doing in the city regarding the finances of the city. So first of all, I want to, of course, acknowledge and thank the Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, who I know tonight has a meeting with the Westchester municipal officers. I want to also thank President Caitlin Gleason for her presence tonight as well, and representing the council whom we work with on a constant basis to move the city forward. We want to acknowledge, of course, our elected officials, J. Gary Pretlow, who is here tonight, and also Legislator Tyree Woodson Samuels. To all of you commissioners and department heads, and of course to the staff of the Comptroller's office, thank you all for being here tonight as well. And then most importantly, of course, to the residents and the citizens of the city of Mount Vernon, whom we serve every day, and is the reason for which we do what we do. Thank you all for your commitment to the city. It is with great pleasure that I stand here this evening to provide you with a financial state of the city in July of 2022, 7 months after taking office as Comptroller of this great city. I reported to you that the city faced significant financial deficit, and reported that it was $9.8 million, that there was a lack of cash reserves, and also that there was an unrestricted fund balance that was lacking. Additionally, we were confronted with 6 years of outstanding fiscal audits, a lack of bank reconciliations, and missing financial records. Today, I want to share with you the progress that we have made and the approach the city is taking to manage the financial landscape effectively, while ensuring that we meet, of course, the obligations to serve our community. Let's start off with the largest question that most residents have. Where are we with the audits and the financial reports? Since that time, I'm happy to report that we have made great strides in our financial reporting requirements. Let's begin with the mandatory quarterly reports. Since January of 2022, we have published quarterly reports each quarter in accordance with the city charter. These reports are available on the city website and provide a snapshot of the budget to actuals for the respective years and their comparisons, as well as the summaries of liabilities, special funds, activities, and the city agency financial statements. Let's now turn our attention, of course, to the independent audits. Today, we have completed 3 fiscal audits, 2016, 2017, and 2018. The 2019 audit is expected to be published within the next few weeks. Our aggressive schedule for the remaining audits is as follows. The 2020 audit is expected by December 31st, 2024. The 2021 audit is expected by February 15, 2025. And then the 22 audit report is expected by April 30th, 2025. Finally, our 2023 audit being done by June 30th, 2025. And then we'll immediately move into the 2024 audit. This is, of course, an aggressive schedule that we have worked with our audits. Anyone who knows about audits and financial statements knows that it's very difficult to do multi-year audits at one time if the records have not been reconciled. And so we've worked hard to do that. Our goal is to complete both the independent audits as well as the state reporting requirements, along with the single audit for the federal government simultaneously. Thus far, we have done so. In addition to the financial audits, we have also completed what was used to be the annual update report that now is called the annual financial audit with the New York State Comptroller's Office for 2016, 17, and 18. These reports are required by the New York State Comptroller's Office. Per the charter, my office is responsible for ensuring that agencies complete their audit. Accordingly, we have also completed the audits for the following city agencies. That include the Industrial Development Agency, the 2019 through the 2023 audit, the 2016 through 17 URA audit, that's the Urban Renewal Agency, and the 2018 and 19 Board of Water audits. Once we have completed and become current with all of our audits, we will then turn our attention to obtaining our credit rating. Let's talk a little bit about debt management. Now, as we look at our debt management, currently we have $2.3 million that we pay in debt service. I'm happy to report that next year it has dropped to $1.5 million. However, there are many other priorities that will require additional debt in the upcoming years. Despite the lack of current audits, we have gained the confidence of the lending market. As a result, we have been successful in securing 2 bond anticipation notes known as BANs. For short-term, this is short-term debt that to provide for our immediate needs. These short-term debts have been issued in the amount of $3.2 million, and they are focused on various capital projects: citywide camera system, public works communication system, fire and police communication system, police equipment and software updates, body cameras for the police department, firefighting vehicles, and various municipal improvements. We have also secured a $15.8 million ban to pay the salary retro payments that are the obligations that we had for CSCA, Teamsters, and the police employees. If we stay on track with our audit completion schedule and maintain good financial and fiscal stewardship, the city will be able to renew these bans annually, only paying the interest. And once we receive our credit rating, it will be restored. We will then be able to convert these short-term debts into long-term debts at better rates. The reason for the bans was because we needed to ensure that we were able to get some projects moving, but also that we also met the obligations to our employees that became as a result of outstanding collective bargaining agreements. There's been a lot of talk about ARP, American Rescue money. The city was awarded $41 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds. This came from the federal government and is managed and supervised by the U.S. Treasury Department. Of course, it was aimed to meet the challenges that the city incurred as a part of COVID-19. We were required, of course, to spend this money and obligated by December 31st, 2014. For the funds that are just obligated and not expended, they must be expended by December 31st, 2026. I'm happy to report that thus far we have expended $33,878,542, leaving the balance, of course, of $7,230,115, of which we have been working closely with our grants department as we report quarterly on all of our expenditures, not only to the public in our quarterly reports, but we also upload our reports and supporting documents to the U.S. Treasury portal. Contrary to the widespread hearsay, and most recent, as of 8:30 this morning, email blast that reported that the city of Mount Vernon and the officers, including the Comptroller, the mayor, and the city council, have mismanaged ARP funds. To date, we have not received any inquiry regarding our expenditures, nor any reports of any mismanagement from the federal government. In fact, we know that the federal government has not even reviewed most of the reports that have been submitted. But we have participated in all of the trainings. We have even asked questions when we then wanted to reallocate money that we then received funding for that previously had been expended from ARP to ensure that we were properly doing exactly what the federal government wanted us to do. Our quarterly reports are updated, of course, to the U.S. Treasury portal, and the supporting documents are there for the federal government. We are on track for submitting our next compliance report, and we want to thank, of course, the grants team who works extremely hard with our office and the commissioners to ensure that we have the proper documentation to do so. We are confident that the $41 million will be expended in the time frame that has been set forth by the federal government, and that there will not be any violations to the city of Mount Vernon. At this time, let's look at the current budget and budget performance. The 2024 budget was adopted at $148,625,733. That was a 7.71% property tax increase, which is always a challenge. While the revenues for this year have outpaced the expenditures to date, it must be noted that the revenues are $15 million under the projected revenue for this same period. Now, don't get too alarmed, because there are also some revenues that are expected to come in the last quarter that may very well shorten that gap. It also should be noted that the expenditures are $2.5 million over the projected expenditures for the very same period. Now, if you know anything about budgeting, you know that there's a budget and then there's a revised budget, and sometimes our revised budgets are affected by the money that our commissioners receive or departments receive from various entities, inclusive of private as well as county, state, and federal governments. And so we look to continue to monitor the revenues and the expenditures as we move forward. These variances, of course, are expected to be adjusted in the fourth quarter, and even after the fourth quarter, as we also know that we operate on a system that is quasi-accrual. In addition, we need to know that the revenues that will come in will also be applied appropriately. There's a significant amount also in December that is expected from the New York State per capita. How the per capita works is that we get a small portion of per capita earlier in the year, and then we get the larger portion in the month of December. And so therefore, we know that even with the per capita, we will begin to catch up to what was expected by the end of the third quarter. Given the number of anticipated large expenditures in the fourth quarter, inclusive of holiday pay, special pays, and also the retro payments that need to be made, the final payment on the retro payments, I have issued a hold on all non-essential spending, communicated to the mayor and her staff, and the executive leadership is now responsible for reviewing all expenditures prior to the submission to our office and execution for payments. Since the tax collection on the previous year's taxes are not aligned with the amount of tax payables that are due to the school district, the city's cash flow has been adversely impacted. As a result, I have requested that from the city council that we seek a tax anticipation note if we find that the cash flow is short for the remaining of this year, knowing that those revenues will come in short order. Let's now look at the statement on revenue and expenses. The cash receipts as of September 30th for this fiscal year is $115 million, inclusive of $69 million, or almost $70 million, in property tax. Now that represents 95% of our tax collection. Typically, we are usually around about 95%, but there's always still that 5% that has not been paid. The sales tax receipts are generally on target, and they continue to be on target. In fact, in the last few years, they have actually exceeded what has been budgeted. However, department revenue is below the projected amounts year to date and are being closely monitored. As it pertains to the cash expenditures, the total cash expenditures as of the close of the third quarter was $112 million. Salaries and wages, exclusive of overtime and differential pay, were $47 million. Large expenditures over $1 million consist of health and dental insurance at $22.2 million, New York State retirement at $14.4 million, overtime pay at $4 million, Social Security, of course, at $3.8 million, contract outside services at 2.6, almost $7 million, judgments and settlements at 1.6 million, insurance premiums at 1.5 million, part-time salaries at 1.5 million, equipment at 1.3 million, and the electricity expenses at a little over $1 million. The final analysis will be provided in early 2025, as it has always been done in the last few years. We are confident that this year's budget to actuals will be somewhere on par. Nevertheless, we must continue, absolutely, to keep our eyes on the revenue and also to manage our expenditures. Now is the time for us to build back our reserves. Let's now turn our attention to the financial trends in the city. One of the major things that tells us where we are and what we are doing, of course, and how we are placing is our liabilities. The financial trends often give us a snapshot of what we have done and then tell us how we can begin to project for what it needs to be done. In 2022, I identified that there was over $8 million in outstanding vendor obligations and approximately $61 million in liabilities. We have worked diligently to pay off all outstanding vendor obligations and should be commended for the good work that has been done, and to reduce the city's outstanding liabilities, recognizing that always liabilities are coming and ebbing and flowing. We are pleased to report that we have cut the liabilities into half, with $30 million still outstanding at this time. However, the number of previous and current lawsuits places the city at tremendous risk. There are two major lawsuits currently under appeal that, if not successfully overturned, will cause long-standing fiscal challenges and unprecedented debt for this city. Payments of these judgments have been denied by our insurance carrier and deemed to be the result of professional or electoral negligence by elected officials and leaders, teaching us an important lesson: to be prudent in our decision making and be aware of our authorities. During this cleanup, we identified several trends in our financial data. We identified that salaries and salary-related expenses mount, first of all, to 81% of the operating budget, and that these expenses, such as health benefits, retirement, workers' compensation, and unemployment insurance, continue to be a large expense for the city, as the city is highly dependent upon individuals in order to deliver services. Other top expenditures include judgments and settlements, tax refunds or certiorars, refuge dumping cost, gas and oil cost, and automobile maintenance. These have we have paid approximately $5.1 million in settlements since 2022. Better management of our risk is important. The Corporation Counsel and I, who serve as partners in our risk management, have continued to work with our insurance agent and with our our department heads to ensure compliance to these risky areas. Now, let's turn our attention to tax and revenue challenges. The annual tax collection, as stated before, is around 95%. However, revenue continues to be a challenge for this city. The top revenue sources outside of property tax have been sales tax, New York State revenue sharing, the per capita, the city refuse and garbage fees, real property transfer tax, parking meter taxes, fees, mortgage tax, interest on real property, and building permits. Unfortunately, over the last 3 years, several of the other revenue sources have underperformed and come under budget, leaving a budgetary gap. These include county transfer of prisoners fees, the absentee landlord fees, the safety inspection fees by the fire department, public works fees, criminal fines are down, which that might be because of the bail reform, public safety permits, sewer charges, right, parking meter permits, and street opening fees. Here are some examples. The franchise tax has underperformed at a negative 47%. Memorial Field revenue is down 67%. Street opening fees and permits are down 75%. Sewer refuse fees down 65%, and parking meter permits down 38%. This is over a 3-year period. That's an average cost, average amount. If the city is going to change its financial trajectory, it is imperative that these revenue sources improve significantly in the upcoming year, and that new revenue sources are immediately identified. The city and taxpayers cannot afford any significant increase in property taxes. As previously mentioned, our largest revenue source is property tax. However, the city has not completed a property assessment reevaluation in over 60 years, which has generated a significant amount of tax surcharges and refunds because of the reevaluation of properties and complaints from property owners that they are overassessed. Each year, our payout for refunds continues to climb. The current tax assessment rate is improper and unsustainable, and the city must undergo a reevaluation sooner than later. While tax revenue collection remains steady, again at 95%, we continue to face significant challenges with our revenue. Despite our high collection rate, the shortfall still has impact upon our operation. There are many factors that contribute to this, and that ought to be considered as we discuss our tax revenue challenges of this city. The challenges do not solely affect the city government. They negatively impact the school district as well. and the ability to provide the services that are needed. As the Comptroller and the tax enforcer for the city, I am saddled with the responsibility of enforcing tax payments and collecting and the collection of taxes that have not been collected by not only the city, but also the school district. There has been some confusion regarding the amount of outstanding school taxes. Outstanding taxes in general. Earlier in my administration, I reported that there was $25 million in outstanding taxes. Several months ago, I reported to the City Council that we had a total of $59 million of outstanding tax revenue. The public was astonished by the significant growth in the report from the original report. Let me provide some clarity. The tax debt that I reported on earlier on was tax debt related to the taxes alone. The tax debt has not grown $30 million in the last few years. The first report was simply the report of what was due in the taxes, the tax base. It did not include the interest and the penalties. The later report recently was a report that included not only the tax base, which is $29 million, but also the additional $30 million that we are carrying on the books for interest and penalties, bringing that total to $59 million as a totality. This amount also includes the additional $15 million of uncollected school taxes from 2020 to 2022. Those taxes were submitted to my office by the school district, and they have been added to the report since the original report in 2022. Although we have received an additional 15 million or 15/16 million from the school district in outstanding school taxes, the base amount of the outstanding taxes only grew $4 million from 25 to $29 million. This is due, of course, to the ongoing collection efforts of my office, as well as the collaboration regarding the current year school taxes that the school district is managing. Nevertheless, the crippling effects of property owners' inability to pay their taxes impacts all entities, coupled with the mandate of the real property tax law that requires the city, or requires me, as the tax enforcer, to make the school district whole for uncollected school taxes after the 2-year collection period, forces the city into potential cash flow deficit. Let's talk about the overview, and give an overview of the foreclosure proceedings. There's been a lot of talk and inquiry into my office about foreclosures. Please note, the City of Mount Vernon has not executed an in-rem foreclosure proceeding since 2014. That is a decade. This has resulted in a decade-long pause in enforcing outstanding tax payments through foreclosure. Various factors, including financial challenges, the global pandemic, the inadequate property tax records, have all contributed to this present situation. Given the significant amount of outstanding taxes, the city's limited cash reserves, It is essential for us to explore more expedient options for recouping these outstanding taxes. Following the Supreme Court ruling in the Tyler versus Hennepin County case, municipalities can no longer retain surplus revenue from the sale of properties foreclosed on for taxes. This ruling has resulted in a projected reduction of $1.8 million in revenue for the 2025 budget, significantly affecting the city's financial planning. In previous years, there was always a projection of a surplus on the sale of those properties. With this new ruling from the Supreme Court, that revenue source goes away. As a result of these challenges with tax collection, in partnership with the City Council, we began to look at options and look at our current system to see where we could revamp the current system. The foreclosure proceedings can be lengthy, can be tedious, and can take a minimum of 2 years before completion of the foreclosure process. And then, once the city is completed with the foreclosing proceedings, the city then will now have to move into an auction process, making, of course, foreclosing proceedings not the ideal approach for immediate revenue and recouping the loss of taxes unpaid. Therefore, the foreclosing on these properties is not the most efficient approach to attaining cash flow for the city's operation, nor collecting the outstanding taxes to ensure prompt payment to the Mount Vernon City School District. Remember, the tax collector is on a time frame of 2 years in order to collect taxes and then make the school district whole. While not ideal approaches, options of payment plans and tax lien sales are more expedient. Before commencing the foreclosure proceedings, the city will offer a revised payment plan option for these taxes. Previously, the payment plan required a 25% down payment and a maximum of 2 years to settle the tax debt. This was deemed as unfeasible given the amount of taxes that an individual property owner currently owes. Therefore, in working with the City Council, we were able to adjust the current payment plan option and offer a new plan that has now been approved by the state. The new plan would then require a 10% down payment. It'll offer 10 years to pay it off if you are a senior in low income. If you are a residential property, up to 5 years to pay it off. And if you are commercial, up to 3 years to pay it off. Those options have been offered and will be offered to those who respond to the request from my office. However, those who do not respond and do not adhere to the requirements, we will then need to look at either foreclosure or tax lien sale. To qualify for these plans, the property owner must be current with any taxes due within the last 2 years. Because remember, it does not become part of the in-rem process until it is 2 years out. So you have to be current with your last 2 years of taxes. Failure to meet these requirements will result in foreclosure proceedings or tax lien sale. Let's now turn our attention to the Mount Vernon City School District and the obligation that the city has to the school district. It is important to clarify tonight that the city of Mount Vernon does not owe the Mount Vernon City School District $25 million in outstanding taxes. Let me provide the clarity. The current debt from the city to the school district relates to the $11.7 million. The city's obligation right now currently is $4.8 million in taxes. Here's the breakdown. $3.3 million in actual school tax, interest and penalties on those taxes, and then $1.5 million in statutory interest because the school district had to sue the city for the $11.7 million. How did we get to 4.8? I'm glad you asked. The city entered into an agreement with the school district to pay monthly on the $11.7 million. Since that time, we have paid a total of $8.4 million to the school district. In addition to the $11.7 million that was owed on the taxes and interest, there was also the court mandated the statutory interest of $2.1 million. Since that time, we have also paid $600,000 on the interest, leaving the balance of $1.8 million on the interest. In summary, the total amount owed to the school district stands at $4.8 million. As part of the settlement agreement, we are paying monthly on both the principal, 11.7, and the interest, the 2.1. We are paying $450,000 to the school district. And whether we have recouped that money from the taxpayer or not, the city of Mount Vernon is paying it to the school district. The payments to pay off all of this $4.8 million will be complete by September of 2025. Now let's turn our attention to the uncollected taxes that have been turned over to the city in recent years for the taxes in which the school district has collected. If you may recall that the school district took over the collection of its school taxes in 2020. Since that time, they have certified the unpaid school taxes for the 2020-2021 school year, the 2021 and the 2022 school year, and those were done in May of 2023. The certification was received by my office in May of 2023. Additionally, certifications for unpaid school taxes for 2022-2023 school year were received into my office in February of 2024. While there may be additional uncollected taxes not received by the school district, please note that the school district has only certified and turned over to the city $16 million. What does that mean? That means that these $16 million, we have 2 years for us to collect it before it is due to the city, to the school district. Specifically, The certified unpaid school taxes at present are once given to us was $4.9 million for the 2020-2021, $5.9 million for the 2021-2022, and $5.5 million for the 2022-2023. What does that mean? That means that in the efforts of the school district to collect the taxes from the taxpayer, they were unable to collect those amounts. And at the end of the warrant, they then certified those amounts and sent those amounts over to us to be entered into the 2-year collection period. These amounts reflect those unpaid taxes from taxpayers that is currently in the tax collection period. In the spirit of collaboration and to provide convenience for the taxpayers, my office, or I, agreed to co-manage the collection of the unpaid school taxes with the school district. Under normal circumstances, you would turn over the certified taxes to the tax enforcer, and the tax enforcer solely would be responsible for going out and enforcing the payment of the taxes. In this particular case, the school district had asked if they would be allowed to continue to collect taxes on those years. And I agreed, for the convenience of the taxpayer, that we would partner together to collect the taxes together. So at present, the school district and the city are collecting on the unpaid school taxes for 2020-2021 school year, 2021-2022 school year, and 2022-2023 school year. How have we progressed? Currently, as we are currently collecting, since that time, since the certification time, we have jointly collected $2.2 million, leaving a balance of $14.1 million across the 3 years that have been certified. According to Real Estate Property Tax Law, Section 1332, the city is not obligated to pay the school district for the outstanding $14.1 million until the 2-year collection period has expired. Therefore, these payments will not be due until May of 2025 for the 2020-2021 and the 2021-2022 school year, and February 2026 for the 2022-2023 school year. And at that point, then the city would owe the school district. This is a legal requirement and process for tax collections. Given the challenges that we face, particularly the lack of response from some of our taxpayers, it is crucial for the city to explore more efficient options for recouping these unpaid taxes. Without proactive measures, we risk not having the necessary cash flow to meet the obligations to the school district once the 2-year collection period is concluded. And I, as your comptroller, wish not to be in the situation in which we are now in court trying to now fight over money that has not been collected. Therefore, the city is dedicated to taking proactive steps in managing the outstanding taxes and maintaining compliance with the legal requirements, particularly concerning our financial commitment to the Mount Vernon City School District. To navigate these challenges, working collaboratively with the school district, recognizing that we are partners in trying to solve this problem together, offering updated payment plans and facilitating clear communication to educate and empower our community will help us to navigate these challenges more effectively. Now that we've talked about the major tax revenue, let's talk about the additional revenue options. Recognizing that raising taxes is not the most prudent way to solve our revenue problems, we are excited at the prospect of new revenue. For instance, this year marked the first time that the city has received cannabis tax revenue from one cannabis retail establishment that opened in the city this year. The revenue from this one cannabis tax retail establishment was approximately $200,000, $200,000 for just the second and the third quarters. We anticipate opening at least two more, or having two more open in the city based upon the applications that have been received and notifications from the state. And therefore, we anticipate that that revenue stream will grow. Additionally, my office is actively collaborating with the police department to reestablish the red light camera program. If you recall, previously, this program faced challenges due to unfavorable contract terms. But with the recent change in laws, and also we are now seeking to renew this opportunity. This initiative will potentially yield the city approximately $1 million in gross revenue for the city. We are also exploring the renegotiation of our cable franchising contracts with Verizon, Spectrum, and other service providers, which will further enhance our revenue sources. Now let's look at budget planning. Budget planning is critical to a city's success. As we look forward to the 2025 fiscal year, it is critical that the administration closely monitor both the revenue and the expenditures for this year, complete the analysis, and allow for our office to work with them to be able to properly project. The upcoming year will be a pivotal moment in our city's financial health. The success of our city's our financial priorities depends upon the effective management of the budget by the mayor, the city council, and myself, as we work to control the expenses while increasing the revenue. The development of the 2025 budget is currently underway. That process is managed by the mayor's office, and we, as the financial office, provide insight and figures in order to help to form the decision. In this effort, we must not only identify new revenue streams, but also address the rising costs associated with mandated obligations, including employee health insurance and retirement benefits. We must be prepared for contract negotiations, collective bargaining agreements, that will avoid the city having to pay these astronomical amounts of retro payments as they have in the past. We cannot afford to incur exorbitant retro payments as we have previously. $15 million is entirely too much to have to owe to employees. And so actively negotiating with our unions is a priority for the city and all elected officials. Health insurance costs has risen significantly over the last 4 years, with the projection of an anticipated $2.5 million increase in 2025, along with $700,000 rise in our retirement cost. Judgments and settlements, those costs associated with those, also continue to rise due to the deficiency in operation, the insufficient staffing accountability, the inadequate staff training, and just downright simple neglect sometimes, or negligence. We must explore strategies to manage these costs, including streamlining our operation, establishing proper protocols, entering into shared service agreements and partnership and cooperative agreements with other municipal entities, and negotiating employee contributions for health benefits, as Mount Vernon remains one of the few employers covering 100% of the cost of their health costs for its employees. Managing these costs, developing protocols, holding staff, elected, and employees accountable and responsible for achieving the revenue targets, while also diversifying the revenue streams, are paramount to achieving the fiscal and operational success of this city. Moreover, the budget strategy will require us to adopt a proactive approach based upon the priorities of our projects and needs of the city. It is essential, therefore, that we develop a capital budget separate from the operating budget to effectively address the city's capital needs. Moving forward, we must embrace a multi-year capital project plan to ensure that we adequately are equipped to manage these needs rather than relying solely on the general fund. To ensure a positive trajectory and to minimize tax increase, the 2025 budget must reflect the importance of exploring, of course, these new revenue streams well beyond the current access to revenue that we see. Given the fixed nature of property taxes, the collective goal requires us to embrace innovation, actively seek collaboration of our dedicated employees to share in the responsibility to manage the cost and to enjoy the associated benefits with our constituents. Failure to do so will negatively impact the operation and have irrevocable harm to our tax base. The Office of the Comptroller has reviewed the budget to actuals over the last 3 years, and we have identified areas of exposure that require better management, such as overtime costs, failed revenue targets, increased risk, non-essential spending. To that end, my office has implemented and continues to identify procedures for transparency and accountability. For example, we have discontinued the decentralized vendor accounts and implemented central account payable procedures. Contract tracking is as part of the voucher audit procedures, and monthly account review and reporting protocols have also been implemented. Previously, Departments were authorized to establish credit accounts with our vendors. That practice has ceased. And anyone violating will be held accountable by my office if they should indebt the city without the proper authorities of my office. To reorient our fiscal operation, my office has expanded our fiscal oversight to include closer monitoring and process auditing throughout the entire city operation. We are meeting periodically with managers as well as fiscal officers in each department to ensure processes are compliant with those required by municipal finance law. There must be operational efficiency and accountability, especially in the revenue-generating and essential service areas such as the building department, the public works, and the parking bureau. Other departments who also have revenues have also been instructed as to how to receive those revenues in accordance with our cash management procedures. Specific areas of focus for me is revenue targets, as well as health care cost, workforce efficiency, and internal audits. We must recognize that the cost of these things clearly affect us, and therefore we must do better at how we manage each and every one of them. Finally, my office will focus on ensuring budgetary compliance. We will ensure that there is efficiency in our workforce, making sure that we have a stronger commitment to a comprehensive analysis of personal operation. And then our internal auditing process will allow us to get a glimpse into the operation of each department as we begin to move forward. So finally, our budget process will focus on, our goals will focus on the budget compliance process, identifying and eliminating waste and abuse, finding efficient ways to improve the efficiency, recommending shared cost services, reducing the expenditures without compromising the high quality of services that our community deserves. And this also includes that there's a possibility that if these things are not met, that there will be a need for a reduction in workforce. Because if we do not achieve the things that we need to achieve, we will not be able to afford to continue the operations that we have before us. Let's now look at fiscal forecasting. As we look ahead, there are some good things that are on the horizon. As we look ahead, we will be able to now ensure that we take advantage of those opportunities because our financials will be in order. Our reporting will be in order. Our confidence will have been settled. An exciting initiative that we are pursuing is called Putting Assets to Work, which aims to establish new policies for leveraging government assets for greater financial benefits. By exploring public-private partnerships on city-owned property land, we can create and sustain revenue streams through land bank ownership and cooperative development. When we reviewed our assets, we learned that we were underestimating the value of our assets. And based upon the research through the Government Finance Officers Association, we learned that it may be more prudent and beneficial for the city if we now stop selling property, but also start leveraging long-term partnerships that will allow us to yield consistent revenue over time. Through our involvement in the GFOA, we have secured a grant to lay the foundation for creating policies and procedures to foster the potential for municipal property manager and to develop our trans-oriented community that will allow us to yield greater economics in our city. National research supports the financial viability of such initiatives in cities like ours that are so close to transit-oriented development. As we assess our financial outlook, it's clear that the 2024 fiscal year has presented its challenges. However, our quarterly reports indicate that we are pretty much on track. Nevertheless, we must remain vigilant as we anticipate revenue shortfalls. As we prepare for the 2025 fiscal budget, my office will ensure that our budget reflects the realistic revenue targets based upon financial data over the last 3 years. The mayor and her administration will closely manage the budget. Our budget manager in our office will closely manage the managers, seeking the opportunity to reduce the cost while ensuring that we have the proper levels of revenue to do what needs to be done. In terms of capital projects going forward, we are currently managing $3.7 million of DASNY funds and $7 million coming from the HUD Section 108. There's additional money that has been given to us by our legislators on the state and federal levels to allow us to be able to continue to do the work that needs to be done, such as the compliance, the ADA compliance at Memorial Field, other critical projects and infrastructures, thanks to Senator Pretlow and Congressman Bowman and a few others. We are now able to do some work at the Armory, the Dove Center, and the firehouses. Finally, I want to emphasize that we are actively negotiating with all of our unions to maintain our current collective bargaining agreement approach, that we do not fall behind in these agreements. Our goal is to work collaboratively with the union leadership to establish fair agreements and to share in the cost, while also making sure that our agreements reflect the true cost of living increases that are needed, competitive salary levels, but minimize and minimize the impact on our taxpayers. So, what is the overall financial state of the city of Mount Vernon? Despite the current fiscal challenges, we have several accomplishments to note. We have completed 3 annual audits and state annual reports. The 2019 audit is projected to be published in the next few weeks. And currently, right now, the auditors are doing field work on the 2020 audit right now. We have lowered our liabilities by 50%. We've developed interim financial policies to include cash management, the Easy Pass management, the purchase card management, journal entry protocols, and the investment policy that is required by law. Astonishingly, Mount Vernon did not have, or if they did have at one point, but we could not find the investment management policy. We are in the final stages of that policy that will have to come before the council if we are going to proceed with any possibility of investing our money once we are able to recoup it. We have also modernized the tax collection, and now our taxpayers are able to pay their taxes, be able to view their taxes. We are currently working on merging our present system with our old system, or revamping to a new system that will include the historic data as well as the current data. We have also modernized our time and attendance system, where our employees now can self-manage their requests for time off. They can see actually their accrued time, and that the managers can better manage where employees are and the tasks that employees are completing. We are rolling out extensive training to ensure that our officers are well equipped to execute the new system. Also, we have worked with the administration, the council, and the Commissioner of Management Services on our procurement systems. We are able now to ensure that we have electronic bidding. We're able to ensure that we're able to monitor the contracts that are coming in and the conditions of and the terms of the contracts. And lastly, we have revamped, we have also revamped the tax payment plan that has allowed for greater feasibility for our taxpayers to remain in their homes, meet their obligations, and for the city to be able to yield the revenue from these outstanding tax debts. And lastly, despite all of our financial challenges, and despite all of the news reports, the false reports, the misinformation, we have gained the confidence of the municipal finance community and been able to acquire 2 bond anticipation notes. So yes, we are a tale of 2 cities. We are in the best of times, and we are in the worst of times. But I'm so grateful that through the dedication of a committed staff, through the hard work of my colleagues in government, through collaboration with them, and not always agreeing, but not being contrary or disagreeable, we have been able to move the needle. Are we where we need to be? Absolutely not. But are we where we used to be? Definitely not. And so therefore, I will continue to seek new opportunities to collaborate with my colleagues, to appropriately manage the finances and the financial office of the city. I will continue to challenge the status quo. I will be a champion for transparency and accountability. But what I will not do is be a part of the gossip mongering. What I will not do is stand by and allow the city not to achieve. I believe that in these almost three years, we have accomplished much. Have we accomplished everything? Absolutely not. But I believe that this is a city that is moving forward. I want to thank you for your attention, for your support, as we work together to address these challenges. to build a stronger financial future for Mount Vernon and continue to serve our community more effectively. Thank you, Mount Vernon, for the opportunity to serve and for your confidence in my leadership to financially move Mount Vernon forward. God bless you, and God bless Mount Vernon. Before we go, we do want to at least acknowledge the finance staff that's here. Please raise your hands.